As the great Scuba Dooba III has long taught us, horror tends to hide where you're least expecting it. As is often the case with Scooby and the gang though, what might seem scary on the outside can end up being just a daft fella in a hokey costume. However, sometimes the everyday can be hiding an extremely dark secret, with aliens, demons, and all kinds of elaborate monsters taking on a disguise to keep them quietly out of sight, only showing their true colours when the right time calls for it, and usually doing so in pretty terrifying fashion. So with that in mind, I'm Andrew from What Culture Horror, and here are the 8 creepiest horror movie monsters in disguise. Number 8. Mary Beth, The Faculty. A fun slice of 90s horror, The Faculty is a solid combination of cheese, some nice special effects, and a young Elijah Wood, which is quite the holy trinity. When a group of students start to suspect their teachers have been infected by alien parasites, they eventually uncover a plot put in motion by an extraterrestrial queen bee. If you can find and kill that queen bee though, the alien threat will be entirely wiped out. However, that's not as easy as it sounds, for the queen bee has learned to disguise themselves over the course of this invasion, meaning anyone could be a skin suit hiding all manner of tentacled terrors. In the film's finale, it's revealed that sweet new student Mary Beth happens to be the queen bee, as she's shown as a gigantic, fleshy, tendril-armed creature ditching her previous southern hospitality for a healthy dose of intergalactic hostility instead. Mary Beth may be somewhat of a cliche disguise, considering quite how nice she's reinforced to be, but the creepy creature lurking underneath absolutely deserves its dues. Number 7. Freddy 2.0. Wes Craven's New Nightmare. A meta accompaniment to the rest of the Elm Street series, Wes Craven's New Nightmare sees Heather Langenkamp and the rest of those involved in the franchise caught up in Freddy Krueger's return, just not as we know it. With the fictional events of the Elm Street films leaking into the real world, Wes reveals that those movies were a cage for a mysterious entity that's now trying to break into reality, and it's taken on the physical form of Freddy as its preferred vehicle to do so. In essence, the Freddy we see in New Nightmare isn't the quip-spouting dream demon played by Robert Englund, but instead something unknowable that's been drawn to Freddy's role in cinema. Basically, it's wearing Freddy's likeness to do its horrible bidding, and the character design here is fantastic, bringing a sense of sinister menace and unease at a point when the Elm Street franchise had long devolved into parody and slapstick. Number 6. The True Knot, Dr. Sleep. The True Knot might not fully devolve into horrific creatures during Dr. Sleep, but these shine vampires are anything but the normal people they present themselves as. We get a glimpse of this with Grandpa Flick's death as he moves between his normal body and an emaciated beast, his eyes blue reflections in place of their normal irises. However, Stephen King's source material is far less lenient with this human body than Mike Flanagan's movie adaptation is, with these psychic suckers transforming when feeding, and it's far more intense than the simple cat-like peepers of the film. Looking at the novel then, there's a particular instance that stands out where King writes about Rose the Hat having a big old helping of shine. As the legendary author puts it in his book, her jaw unhinged all the way to her chest, and the bottom of her head had become a dark hole in which a single tooth jutted. Her eyes, ordinarily uplifted, bled downward and darkened. Her face became a doleful death mask with the skull standing out clear beneath. Yeah, no thank you. Number 5. The Witch, the Wretched. The monster at the heart of the Wretched is a horrible, decaying figure that isn't waiting patiently for her big reveal. No, this witch wants us to know she's there, hiding out in the bodies of those that she preys upon, only showing her true form when laying the scares on thick. Her disguise might not be convincing to an audience, since everything organic dies around her, but it's frustratingly difficult for the characters to get a hold on the supernatural threat she embodies, as she hops between forms. It's only when getting her face full of a skeletal, zombified, decrepit form that the true extent of her possessive powers really hits home. Sometimes, knowing something is wearing a disguise only makes us that much more desperate for it to stay behind the mask. Number 4. Megan, Dog Soldiers. Keeping her lycanthropic tendencies under wraps for the entirety of the movie, Megan seems like a useful asset when a squad of soldiers find her in the woods. With the troop being hunted by what they discover to be werewolves and hiding in a local house, Megan is the zoologist that knows the background of both the area and the creatures, enough so to help form a solid defense against these canine attackers. And that would be useful and all, you know, if she wasn't a murderous werewolf herself. The big bad wolves of this movie don't show themselves straight away, but when we get a glimpse of them, it's plain to see they're some of the most disturbing humanoid beasts ever put to screen. Knowing Megan has been hiding this form throughout all of her interactions is a horrifying prospect, and that she disguises herself for long enough to royally screw any escape plans for the soldiers, that's even more so. Number 3. Constantine, Sputnik. It's likely one of the fastest disguises to ever be dropped within a movie, but man is it a fun one. Roughly half an hour into Sputnik, we learn the terrifying central drive of what this eerie sci-fi actually is. A symbiotic alien organism that would be. First glimpsed as a shadow by cosmonaut Constantine, once seen through the window of his shuttle as he returns to Earth with a fellow pilot, the creature actually makes its home inside the space traveler. Using Constantine's body as a spacesuit against the elements of Earth, it only comes out in the dead of night to feed. And this is only shown to protagonist Tatiana after she's made up her mind that Constantine, yeah, he's just got a few normal illnesses going on with him. There's nothing normal though about a slithering extraterrestrial organism that feeds on flesh and hides out in the esophagus, as we're quickly reminded in Sputnik. Number 2, The Blair Witch. Blair Witch. This is an interesting one, if only for the fact that it's not obvious at all when watching the 2016 Blair Witch. While this sequel upgrades the found footage of the original movie to terrifying high-definition horror, the biggest difference between those two films is that Blair Witch is not afraid of showing us what lurks in the Burkittsville forest, casting aside the clever tricks of the original to give us a full frontal monster hiding behind the trees. But that is not what you think it is. Whilst it seems quite plain that the pale, long-limbed creature of the forest is in fact a visual representation of the Blair Witch herself, writer Simon Barrett has pointed out that this wasn't his intention at all. She's actually Ellie Kedwood, part of the original Blair Witch mythos, a woman tortured for witchcraft by being tied to a tree with rocks attached to her limbs. And yes, many assume Ellie Kedwood to be the Blair Witch herself, but Barrett isn't necessarily one of them. If that's the image of something simply controlled by the witch, then you can be sure the real deal is something far, far worse, which maybe we'll see one day in the future. Number 1, Edna Relic. From the outset, Relic is a pretty special kind of horror movie, serving as a metaphorical deep dive into the trauma of dementia, with the monster of the day one that many of us will sadly face during our lifetime, as Edna suffers a loss of identity, a loss of reality, a loss of humanity, reflecting the struggle that many experience in old age. Sentimental and scary in equal measure, Edna's loss of her faculties initially manifests as a presence in her home, whether it's strange noises or the rooms themselves literally transforming into winding, endless mazes. Something supernatural is afoot, which then takes a hold of Edna herself. No longer self-reliant and assured, Edna turns into a feral beast that attacks her family, eventually succumbing to her illness in a haunting finale that sees her daughter peel away Edna's flesh to reveal what has been hiding underneath. That would be a blackened, hairless and inhuman creature, with Edna's body turned into a mirror for her mind, and the monstrous result is one as deserving of empathy as it is fear. So there we are then, some of the very best horror movie monsters that love nothing more than to disguise themselves in all manner of twisted and crazy ways. Are there any of your favourites that we've missed out here? If so, absolutely be sure to let us know in the comments section, and while you're here, as ever, be sure to like, share and subscribe. I've been Andrew from What Culture Horror. This has been the 8 creepiest horror movie monsters in disguise, and I hope you have the very best possible day.